What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin and Markets. My name is Ansel Lindner. Did not do a live stream yesterday. Usually I do them on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but going to make up for it here today on Thursday. News cycle in Bitcoin is quite a bit slower after we came off of this big multi-$1,000 pump, and we've been flat now for a couple days, or for about 24 hours, and so our adrenaline has dropped and there's not a lot of news out there. But I'm going to cover Senator Warren was speaking on CNBC and in Congress. Some videos dropped just today. I don't know if it was from today or yesterday in Congress, but we're going to go through those, watch that. And first, we're going to look at a few charts. So if you guys are new to my content, I am kind of like a dissident Bitcoiner, an independent thinker. Been here for a very long time in Bitcoin, making content since 2016. And I came from the gold bug side. I have a degree in economics, came from the gold bug side. So I approached Bitcoin as an inflation hedge and sound money right at the beginning. But since the years have gone by, I've adjusted my opinion, updated my opinion. And over the last several years, I've been very correct in most of my calls. Now I'm calling for, a deflationary grind to the system, not a collapse. But we have been in something like a silent depression. And so you have to look at macro from that lens. I would correctly called the rising dollar. I correctly called the transitory inflation, which it has been transitory. If you don't consider 2 years transitory, I don't know. It went up and went down if you look at the charts. What else? Just recently been spot on calling with all my Bitcoin predictions, my oil predictions, all that. So Bitcoin and macro all wrapped up into one show. So, okay, let's share the screen. This is bitcoinandmarkets.com. Go here for all of my content. I put out a free weekly newsletter, a professional tier newsletter every week. I also write for bmpro.substack.com. Let me go to that. Right here, this one that came out yesterday are the Bitcoin ETFs priced in. And I go through all the different ways to estimate that, multiplier effects, Cantillon effect, the being a Veblen good, what are the professional like Bloomberg and Galaxy Digital, what are their expectations for inflow of capital? So I go through all of that in that piece. I think it's pretty comprehensive. I also touch on China in there as well. So check out bmpro.substack.com. All right, let's go into the charts real quick and see what we got going on. This is oil. Let's get back to Bitcoin. So you can see we just screamed higher. Of course, you guys know that, from about 37,000, 15% higher, up to where we're sitting right now at 43,396, down a little bit from the top by about $1,000. But I don't expect this to be the end of this pump. A lot of people think this is based off of the ETF approvals, the imminent ETF approvals. There's a few people that don't think they will get approved. I think Tone Vase is still on the no approval side of the house. But I would say that the Bloomberg guys are correct. 90 to 95% chance of approval. Of course, that small little percent does add in some uncertainty. So how can you price it in if you don't even know if it's going to be approved? But anyway, Yeah, so a lot of people are thinking that this pump is from that, but also yesterday or 2 days ago, was it, that there started to be some rumors that I think Caitlin Long came out with a tweet saying that she heard from a very reputable, uh, high net worth Bitcoin holder that they had intel that there was a sovereign buying. Okay. And then people looked up, hey, Qatar, some high diplomats from Qatar went to El Salvador back in September. And yes, there are reasons that those kind of visits can happen all the time, but it's just interesting. A lot of people were jumping on the bandwagon saying that Qatar is looking to diversify some of their sovereign wealth fund, which is about $500 billion into Bitcoin. So even if they put, say, a 1% allocation, that would be gigantic, you know. What else? So that could be the impetus behind this move, not the ETF speculation, or both, or a little bit of both. But anyway, so what we got here on the daily chart, we can see the RSI didn't quite max out, and we could call this a bearish divergence, but I don't think it's done rallying. So we'll see. That can go away if it keeps going higher. It got to about 80 on the RSI on the daily, which is high, but it got even higher back here. Let's see. Back here on October 25th, it was 87. And it would take a lot to get it to 87 from this point. I mean, we'd have to go probably to 50,000 or higher to even get to 87. So there is some left in this move, as well as look at the MACD. It is crossing back up. It didn't even get down to the center line. It started crossing up before that. And that has happened before. Let me go back in history here. So the one it happened a little bit here, back just in October, but that was so small, I wouldn't really even count that. We have to go back to 2021 to really get this move in here, that the MACD didn't get to the center line and crossed back up. And where was that on price? That was on this dip here. We got up to 41,000 in January of 2021, dipped down to 30,000 by the end of the month. MACD kind of rolled over and then started going back up before it hit the center line. So that's kind of where I am, the best comparison that I can find in recent history on Bitcoin. So we do it, since it crossed bullish before it got to the center line, I think that's a bullish sign. And we can have another move higher. Of course, I talk about specific targets on my professional tiered newsletter, so you guys can check that out at bitcoinandmarkets.com. Let's take a look at a couple other charts. Let's take a look at coin. So I was pointing out this level right here at about 156 as a possible line of resistance. Didn't quite get there, but holding steady right now, green on the day for today. And let's take a look at the Valkyrie Bitcoin Miners ETF. This one, I talked about it right back here on Bitcoin Magazine Pro and said, hey, Coinbase is going up, but the miners haven't followed. Price is going up. These guys could be lagging. And that was the case. They shot right up into the 50% retracement. Surprised it didn't get all the way to the golden pocket, but maybe again, if this move is not done, they can continue going higher as well. Okay, so that's it for the Bitcoin charts. Let's get into some of the other macro charts. We have gold getting hammered back there on the day that it broke the all-time high, and it has not really recovered. I mean, it stayed above 2,000, which could be considered something good, but technically it was overbought. It's crossing back down on the MACD, which is a dangerous sign here. Crossing down from the RSI is not a divergence, but the MACD is a divergence here. So we have a lower high on the MACD, but a higher high on the price. and it's crossing down after being oversold. So this does not look very good for gold right here. I could see it breaking 2,000 in the next week. So how about DXY? Now, crazy. I called this on Twitter. I posted right when it was going into this golden pocket on the retracement and hitting oversold, just barely hitting 28.5 on the RSI. And I said, man, this would be an interesting place for a bounce. This could be it. This could be the bottom for the dollar. And it bounced up. Then MACD crossed over. I think that's pretty much a confirmation that that is a bottom for the dollar, at least for the time being. We could see, you know, a lower dollar if we go out into 2024. But I think that's the low is in for the next couple months on the dollar as well. And also what's interesting about this is if we, let's hide this one. And for this entire move, and put it on regular, not log. And let's do a fib on this. It's interesting that this retracement got all the way back up to the 50 for this entire move. I wonder if you put it on the weekly closes, if it gets to 65 or 61. No, it doesn't. But it did get to the 50%. However, when we look at the broad dollar, that's the DXY, which is heavily weighted against the euro. I think it's 60% euro, and then the yen and the pound are both about 10%. So it's heavily weighted towards those other major currencies, and it doesn't include things like the Mexican peso or the Chinese yuan, but the broad dollar does. It's weighted by our trade partners. So the Chinese yuan is heavy in this, as well as the Mexican peso and the Canadian dollar and all that stuff. So if we look at this, let me hide this one for just a second, or I'll just delete that. What's interesting about this is it did get up to the, does this have candles? No, I can't do candles. It did get up to the 61, and now it's coming down. And if we trace out a fib for this, it's coming down into the 61.8 for this move as well, just like the DXY. So the broad dollar and the DXY are agreeing here, and very interesting. I don't expect the dollar to weaken. If you guys don't know, if you're new to my content, the dollar is king, and it will continue to be king. There is no real de-dollarization going on at all in the world. The dollar is just getting more entrenched. If you look at like the FBI statistic or IMF, not FBI, IMF statistics or SWIFT or any of those things, the dollar is just gaining in almost every metric, and the euro is the one that's losing. That we are it's really de-Eurofication right now in the globe. But eventually, I think the current what's the word I'm looking for? Implementation of the dollar as being just completely free floating and credit based, that's going away. But it doesn't have to the dollar doesn't have to die. You know, the dollar can get stronger and stronger. And then they say, hey, well, we need to devalue the dollar, you know, centrally. And we can do that by backing it with a commodity. So they will go back to having a backed dollar. So this current dollar will die, but the dollar itself won't die. The dollar has changed many times throughout history. Went from initially, we didn't even have like a domestic dollar, but then we had a domestic dollar. We had a certain weight of silver. Then we had silver and gold, a bimetallic standard. We had other things like during the Civil War, we had currency experiments. There was a lot of wildcat banking, a lot of different individual towns and stuff throughout New England and all over the United States experimented with just paper money, you know, strict fiat money, and they failed, of course. Then we went to a different weight of a bimetallic standard, according to the federal government. Then we got rid of silver, demonetized silver. So it wasn't anymore a certain amount of grains of silver per dollar and a certain amount of grains of gold per dollar. It was just gold. Then it changed to be a different weight of gold. Then it changed in Bretton Woods to being a international system of, currency pegs, and then the US dollar was pegged to gold. And now finally in 1971 it went completely off of any peg. So it's how many changes is that? That's at least half a dozen changes to the dollar. You have to be crazy to say that the dollar is not going to change again. The dollar will change again. It just depends on how it changes. And I think it's going to be backed by Bitcoin. That's what I think. Okay, that's my dollar rant. Let's take a look at the 10-year. I mean, oh boy, guys, this is all the way down at 4.14, signaling recession. As rates go down, that means money is getting tighter and we are going into recession. People are fleeing to safety, and that's what's going on here. Okay, let's take a look at oil. I mean, this was the most recent announced cut by Saudi and OPEC plus, and it just sold off right afterwards. I mean, this is a sick chart. I don't know how anybody can look at this, and yeah, you could say that there's some manipulation, but not a lot. You have to take the prices as they are, and have a thesis, a framework that can explain it. A lot of these macro guys around, Luke Groman and others, they take the data and they try to project forward without explaining why the current prices are what they are. They just say, oh, this is going to happen and it's going to be bad. And a lot of them are linear thinkers. They can they take one metric and they take it to the absurd length and say it's disaster. Well, of course, that's not going to happen. There's give and take. There's waves and flows throughout the economy, throughout the global market. But anyway, so I've been calling for lower oil. I didn't know if it could get quite this low, but we'll see if it continues to go down. How about stocks? Stocks are trying to push through this high again. I mean, this looks pretty strong. Let's take a look at some of these other metrics. MACD is crossing down, but the RSI has room to continue higher. But, the S&P 500 doesn't like to go like Bitcoin and go up to 80, 90 on the RSI. Once it hits 70, that's pretty much it for the RSI on the S&P 500. This one got to 76. This one got to 76. So that's about the top for RSI on the stock market. It still has room to go up. And if it breaks higher, it could just chop its way higher for a long time. Okay, enough on those metrics. Let's get into what we got going on here, because I do have a limited amount of time today, but let's get this going. Oh, I'm going to share my screen with Telegram. Sorry, guys, I didn't share any charts, but let's just share screen now so you guys can listen to this with us. All right. So Elizabeth Warren, she is on, what is it, CNBC, and she's talking about Bitcoin. Blech, puke. Got to hold back the puke on that. I mean, there is a lot of studies out there. There's very little amount of the volume on Bitcoin is going to any sort of illicit uses. I mean, that's even from just buying drugs to this terrorist financing. And it's just ridiculous on the face of it. But, this same thing has been said about Bitcoin for a long time. I went back on YouTube and I tried to find like previous videos, and you can go 8 years back and you hear pretty much the same people saying the same thing. It has not changed. They have not gotten anywhere. The only thing that's changed now is that Bitcoin is in more billionaires' hands. Bitcoin is more entrenched. There's more interest from clients. There's more interest in protecting and nurturing the mining industry and Bitcoin as an investment class. It's understood now by a lot more people. So this same FUD, it is a lot weaker today than when it was initially said 8-10 years ago. All right. Gabber had he had a nice thread here today on this. I am going to go back.
I've always been deeply opposed to crypto, Bitcoin, etc. You pointed out the only true use case for it is criminals, drug traffickers.
Look at his face. This guy sitting next to him, I think he's the Bank of America guy. He just looks disgusted. Like, what is he saying?
Anti-money laundering, tax avoidance, and that is a use case because it is somewhat anonymous, not fully, and because you can move money instantaneously, and because it doesn't go through, as you mentioned, all these systems have built up over many years, know your customers, sanctions, OFAC, they can get bypass all of that.
Okay, so he's an idiot. I mean, obviously he's saying this with a high amount of self-interest, but of course, the US dollar is used more for all of this financing than everything else combined times 100 probably. So, people get around this OFAC and they get around the KYC all the time, every day, to places like China, to places like Iran, to places anywhere. It's absolutely just, everybody knows this too. Like I said, people have been saying this for 10 years and people understand it better now. It doesn't work. They just look like jokes. But Gabber has a great comeback on this. So he says that JP Morgan Chase parent company is the second most penalized financial institution with close to $40 billion in fines of 272 violations since 2000 alone. Jamie Dimon is in no position to criticize Bitcoin. And here we go. Look at this. What a complete idiot. Idiot. These people are so bad. Okay, I had the longer talk that Elizabeth Warren did, or her full comments and full questions, but we don't have time to look at that. I have just one more thing here from Gabber. And so the Bitcoin CEO reacts to JP Morgan's CEO. Bitcoin doesn't care. All that this is going to do is spread Bitcoin more. No press is bad press for Bitcoin. Also, responding to Jamie Dimon's comments there is that, yes, Bitcoin can be used to buy drugs, but as Andreas Antonopoulos said years ago, it's not money if you can't use it to buy drugs. All right, so that is all I have for today. Let me check the comments. You guys can throw something in the comments here if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble. They should come through. Not seeing any coming through there. Let me check Telegram and see if you guys are saying anything here. Oh, hash rate. Yeah, let's check that out real quick. So this is the site I use to check the hash rate. And the last adjustment here was 5.07. And in 2 days, it's estimated to be negative. So we'll see if that is the case. They have a cool representation of the 2016 blocks, and the red is where we should be, and the blue is filled in where they found blocks. So you can see we're behind where we should be, and there's not really any time to catch up. Even if, say, price jumped and hash rate jumped by 5% or something, I don't know why it would, why they wouldn't have everything they can on there right now, but there's just not enough time to catch up. So this will be a negative adjustment coming up. And that's good for miners too. I mean, as far as I understand, the difficulty will go down. Miners will become more profitable. Let's take a look at mempool.space before we go. Okay. 333 megabytes in there. The average fee is down to $4. Or that's a high priority. Low priority is $3.25. Let's take a look at the yearly chart of the mempool. And man, oh man, look at that. Made another high just yesterday, looks like, or just today in the amount. But we don't see the, here, I'll go down to a week. And these layers are obviously by fees. So you can see on this little tool tip, the pink is 1 to 2 sats. The green that I'm in right now is 10 to 12. Let's see. We go up here. What's the highest on this chart? Probably up here, 400 sats per virtual byte. I mean, that's insanely expensive. But you can see we don't have right now, they've chewed through all these expensive ones and they're starting to come down into some of these cheaper ones. Now, I don't think ordinals are going to be paying 400 sats per virtual byte. They have to pay a lot of fees because I guess it's a lot of different inputs and outputs for those things, for the inscriptions. But they will be paying down here in 10, maybe 5 sats per virtual byte, and they'll just wait for them to get approved. And we can actually test that. So here is dune.com, and they have a bunch. I don't know exactly what the site is, but these guys are tracking the ordinals. And you can see here that we had this big new all-time high in the number of inscriptions, but it has come down drastically over the last, let's see, how many weeks is that? About 2 weeks, it's come down quite a bit. So today, there's only been 113,000 inscriptions. And I don't know if they're counting every output or input or whatever, or just one inscription, like one NFT or whatever they're doing on there. But these peaks were all the way up here over 400,000. So we're down to 100,000. If you take a look at this chart, it breaks it out by type. And the main type here is text with a couple maybe images and a couple applications down here, but not much. Most of them are text, and you can also see this trend downward here in the last couple of weeks. So ordinals are not the ones that are pushing up the high fees. I think this is organic fee or organic transactions. There's something going on here. Of course, every time the price spikes, we do get more transactions. So that could be it. Maybe people sending or buying and sending Bitcoins off to cold storage, or sending them to the exchange to sell. So those will be where a lot of the transactions will be coming from. Okay, so that's it for today. Let me jump back to bitcoinandmarkets.com. Check it out. Put out all my writing there, and also on bmpro.substack.com. Check out the Telegram, t.me/Bitcoin and markets. Check out the Twitter @Ansel Lindner. Going out on YouTube and Rumble. Make sure you guys comment, like, and subscribe. Let me check and see if there's any other questions here. I don't see any questions from Telegram. Let me go into the chat. Dex Invictus is back with us. Welcome. All right. So that's going to do it, guys. Thanks. See you next time. Bye.